GeoHub. Let me put that we're being recorded there.
Sorry. Thank you. Sorry.
That's all right. And it was fascinating. The LA GeoHub, and I think most people here know, and probably even others could speak better of it than I can. But what it is, it's a way of tracking information in the city, and then using ArcGIS to visualize the spatial data that a city is, right? A city is distributed across a space in Southern California. And what struck me and other folks in the audience is that they'd go through and they'd show, okay, high traffic areas or trash pickup areas or areas where there seems to be a food desert or areas that have this, that, and the other. And of course, red was always bad and green was always good. And it struck to me and others that the areas that were consistently red were the areas where our students came from. And this was not a good thing. And so we understood that this information is vital to get distributed across the city so people can understand what's going on in their own backyard, especially compared to other regions in the greater Los Angeles area. And once we did that, and I stopped, and I remember saying this, I was going to stop. Do you realize that the students that we serve, their communities from which they grew up, their aunts, their uncles, their brothers, their sisters, their parents are all living in those red areas? And I said, if the city of LA is interested in making change and that big data can be used to help transform cities, that you have to be here at Cal State LA, because those are the folks that need to change more than anything. And so when we got together to put together the NSF grant, we thought about, okay, we can't just say, hey, we want to change for the good at all aspects. So we thought about the urban environment, right? We thought about the arts. We thought about things about social justice. These were broad enough that we were able to then, come to the faculty and get students involved that were interested in a variety of different things that would help really make LA better. And so how can big data transform people? Well, I think the way we looked at it is that if we can reach as many students as possible, and we integrated some of our big data grants, initiatives and goals in the NSS 1001s, the Introduction to Higher Education. We had these spring redesigns where faculty would go in and incorporate some of the big data grant goals directly into their classes, and they would work with the city using the LA GeoHub and this massive database to begin to ask questions about social justice and the environment, or tree canopies, or urban heat areas, and use ArcGIS as a visual platform and story maps as a way to tell these stories in such a way that it was accessible to everybody, that everybody could see immediately. If they understand where they are on a map, they could see immediately what's going on perhaps in their neighborhood or in their neighbor's neighborhood. And they could begin to, through the types of research that was done, especially in the spring redesigns, begin to then look at specific questions and throw that on a map to create a visual pop for people to understand, the equity that needs to occur in Los Angeles. And so we did that for 3 years. We had these spring redesigns. We had the NSS incorporated in the NSS 1001s. And we did that for 3 years. And then we started thinking, okay, what's the next step? Jonathan and Jessica and Don will tell you about some of the results that we got from these classes and these spring redesigns, and hopefully show you some visuals. And if not, that's cool. They could talk a little bit about, what the students did and how it helped them. Some of them got jobs, some of them are integrated in the city, and how it also helped our community. But what I wanted to talk about today was, what's the next step? I mean, I think this was a good sort of introduction of providing a platform for our students to get introduced to big data, right? This is what big data is. This is what can happen with big data. And here's a platform, the LA GeoHub, that you can use and integrate and begin to tease apart and ask specific questions that you might be interested in. But what I want to know, and what I want to begin to think about this year, is what's the next step? How can we take what we've done as a foundation and change it into a higher level of research, right? Where we can maybe pinpoint specific things and actually go and make the change rather than get introduced to say, okay, this is the change that needs to happen. What can we actually do? How can we take what we do, leverage our skills of the faculty, the resources that we have on campus, the connections that we have with the city, and then partner with additional nonprofits to not only help them to actually then take it a step further, perhaps master's thesis, honors theses, publications, books, if you will, things like that, that would take it, what we started with our big data goals and begin to actually say, okay, here's the problem. We've identified this issue over the last 3 years. Here are some of the solutions, and we want to implement those things. And so I see this as a transition year, a year where we could begin to address some of those both broader and specific issues that need to be examined in our city, with the hopes of going back to LA, going back to the mayor, going back to the leaders and saying, look, this is what we've done with your own data sets, right? Now we need to make policy change. And so I think that's where we are with this year number 4. It's a year we want to say yes. I remember Angela came to us and I came to your department chair and said, hey, I work in South America and I'm interested in this topic. How can I integrate in the big data grant? And then, our knee-jerk reaction, I think, in our society is to say, no, we can't do that. But what we want to do this year is say, yes, let's figure out ways that we can incorporate, whether you're in Chile, whether you're in Mexico, whether you're in Canada, what's going on there and mirror it to what's going on in LA. I think we always need to circle back to Los Angeles, and that's easy to do because we're a metropolis that has people from all over the globe, and issues that are affecting peoples across the world are also some of the similar issues that our own population, especially our own communities, are faced with today. And so Troy Chatterjee is running the Urban Garden program, the garden here on campus that is being set up next to the new dormitory. And what's cool about that is that not only are they looking at edible foods, right, as a way of creating community gardens and then community cohesion, but also a way of bringing good foodstuffs to our community. And one of the things that really caught my attention was that the next phase of that is to look at native plants of the area, plants that sustain indigenous peoples for thousands of years. And I would really like to support that. I don't think that we have done enough on this campus to highlight indigenous studies, to highlight what our Native American communities have gone through over 10,000 years. And I would like to begin to think of incorporating those types of things in the big data grant. Now, clearly the LA GeoHub doesn't have data on everything, but as Jessica, I'm sure, and Don will tell you, there are other data sets that we can get. And with the skills of people like Jonathan Vellanoweth, I don't know where you got that name. It's where we must be brothers or sisters or something like that. We must be related somehow. He's my nephew. He's my brother Robert's son. And my brother Robert teaches in chemistry, biochemistry. He's a biochemist. I just had lunch with him. So and Jonathan has a certificate in GIS and is in a master's program in geosciences and environment. So has a lot of experience working with GIS and understand how it can be used as a tool to help transform communities. And so while I'm one of the original PIs of the grant, clearly all the work that's done on the ground, it's folks like Don and Jessica and Jonathan and other people and the other graduate students and other undergraduate students that have worked on this project. They can help talk to you about how we implement, big data in a community change basis, how we use LA GeoHub, how ArcGIS can be used really to transform our communities. One of the things we thought is that our students would be introduced to this. They would go home and talk to their brothers and sisters. They would talk to their parents, who would talk to their friends as a way, and I hate to use the word analogy of a wildfire because Well, it's like Don says, it's that season. We have to be careful with those analogies, but spread like wildfire. And I think that's one thing that ArcGIS can help us do, because it's something that's accessible. When you don't have to know how to use it to know how to read it, and to know and to see what kind of information you can get from that. So that's kind of the big data in a nutshell. I'm glad to see folks from biology here, anthropology, history, because I think those are the areas that we need to begin to address, right? Those are the areas that we need to expand. We've had a lot of computer science majors. We've had some business majors. We've had some decent number of social science majors here. But getting folks like in the natural sciences involved in this, I think would be really critical. Or like Mel, who's an archaeologist. I mean, that's what we deal with is big data, right? As time-space systematics, lots of information. And that's another thing as an archaeologist, I was interested to see how we could push the envelope here and begin to address things through time, right? Like, so that's why that native plants in the garden was so important to me. What did the LA basin ecosystems look like 10,000 years ago, 5,000 years ago, 3,000 years ago? How did they sustain major indigenous populations that live there? And what did we do, in historical times to transform that? We have a landscape that has totally changed. We have rivers that have been concreted, right? We have areas that used to be fields where that supported wild plants and supported animals that no longer exist because now they're under concrete, steel, and glass. And so I think that long term, and I don't like to use the word, but the longue durée perspective, it was important. It's something we haven't done yet. If somebody like Mel or somebody like Paul that looks at the evolution of critters, if something like that can be integrated into this, we will support it. And so the big word today is yes. If you have an idea, we want to find a way to support that idea and not no. And that's what's good about your number 4. How can we take it further? How can we then use this to launch onto another grant and keep this going? So I will be quiet because I know I could go on forever, but Jessica and Don and Jonathan, I think will help, clarify some of the things that I might confuse.
Hi, everybody. I think I'm next. I'm Jessica Bodo, creating anthropology. I was the original project manager on the grant for the pilot study when we were doing the application process, and then for the first year and a half of the grant. And then I went on maternity leave, and Dawn took over for the last 2 years. When we started this project, I was really enthusiastic about it because I was teaching a methods class, and I ran the pilot study in the methods class in anthropological methods to look at the 3 topical areas that we started with the grant, right? Social justice, the environment, and the arts. And as we looked at that as a class, and as we looked into what information existed under different topics the students came up with, we pushed forward and found things that, like data sets that existed through the city that had glaring problems with interpretation. Like you can look to see what all areas have like hazardous chemicals or toxic waste. And the things that come up are like gas stations, because that's technically a hazardous waste, or like mechanics because they have oil. And so we were like, that stuff is getting mapped the same way on this data set as places that house actual industrial chemicals. Like there isn't, right? So we were sort of finding interesting things. The students were like, hey, this doesn't make any sense. Like, let's figure out ways to parse out some of this data. So I think the really interesting part about this is that you can approach this from a lot of different angles. You can approach course redesign from saying, I want students to kind of have topical areas and then go through data sets on their own and find what's available, what kind of interests them. Or you can curate ahead of time, because we have the graduate assistants working through the fall. And as you want to look at your class and try to pick through this, you can go through and figure out what that data looks like and what's available, and kind of target them directly, especially if this is in tangent with your research. That may be something you want to do ahead of time. And so there's lots of different avenues for how you can approach this. because the GeoHub is one specific little area that's carved out for us within the larger framework of GIS, like of ArcGIS as an Esri product, Esri has like the wider world of data that they collect in general and that they visualize and that they map and that they've got everything, and everybody dumps their data into them. So it's like every government agency, tons of international agencies, regional, state, even local stuff gets dumped in there. And they've gone through, and a lot of that, like most of it is clean. So there's all kinds of that stuff that you may want to map onto the stuff that's within our little hub, which is what the city collects. And the city of Los Angeles is the #1 data collection city in the nation. Mayor Eric Garcetti made it like his 4th proclamation as mayor, that was like a thing we were going to do. And so every city department collects every piece of data, like an insane amount of data that even they don't know what kind of data they have. So the first year, Dr. Nuno in sociology was like, I want to look at 911 calls. Well, we realized that there was a problem with when there's a victim of a crime, they target you to the closest intersection because they don't want to give away the address to protect the privacy of the victim. And when they did that, a lot of the intersections weren't precise enough. They were giving you like a major intersection and not the actual intersection of the streets that were closest. And so we talked to the data collection person for LAPD, and they went through and cleaned it. They went through, like, actually had a system pull the intersection that was closest to the actual address and redo all the data to make it more precise. And we forced them as a government agency, as an entity, city department, to change how they collect data from now on. They're going to do that with more precision because we asked for them to do it and they realized it was a better way to do it. So you're not only affecting change within the students, but you're also affecting change within the city to a certain degree, which is kind of cool. The other interesting part about this year particularly is we don't have to match with a nonprofit particularly. You can, we absolutely encourage it if you have one in mind you want to work with, but just using the city data to benefit the community writ large also fulfills our mission. And so that's another opportunity to say, if you really just want to dig into data and you really just want to get students trained on this, that's absolutely okay. Further, the seed scholars we're going to have in the summer. So the students that run through your courses, if you're selected for the course redesign in the spring, all of those students will be able to apply to be summer interns paid through this grant, and they will all get the opportunity to be housed within a city department. So if your class looks at police data and you would like them to dig into this, and you have a student who's super jazzed about this, and this is like fulfilling their life mission, and they really get technologically capable through this process, and you feel like you're comfortable putting them in an internship and recommending them for that, they can then get an internship with the city, with the police department, and they can work with the city's police department's head of data and work with them on projects all summer, and then publish stuff out of that, or come back to you with that data, or work on it in their graduate program or whatever. And same thing for like every department. So it's a really cool opportunity this year where we've never put students at the city. And just figuring out how a city works, like as a municipal entity, and how to get jobs in the city and get recommended for things. This is a big opportunity for those students to figure that process out, and then to also work with data at the same time and get fully trained on it and fluent. And we've had students that were interns that went on to get jobs at nonprofits, and we expect the same with the city from this summer. If you've got students that might be seniors. So the particular question that Paul is asking about his biodiversity, there will definitely be information pertinent to the county. I don't know, Jonathan's going to speak to this, but county data is different than city data, which is different than individualized city data, which are sometimes you have trouble with county level things. And then you're going to get data that's going to be collected by people like Department of Agriculture or national parks, or right. There's like all these other, lots of people collect different types of data, and not everybody talks to each other. So you may end up with a couple of different data sets that you have to make sense of, pushing them together in that kind of situation, which is a good problem to solve in a classroom also. Jonathan, do you have an idea about particular data sets that might be interesting for Paul?
I can look into those, but there are a few biodiversity indexes that across LA County that would be helpful for that. And that's a very interesting project, by the way. I'm excited to work with you on that.
Yeah, so lots of opportunities. Please ask questions if you have them as you're thinking about your data sets, because there's lots of different stuff that's available. You just are going to be in charge of trying to wade through how and from what source, because it's going to come at you from a bunch of different places. So like we had a class that was looking at tree canopy data because they were looking at and working with city plants, who they come in and plant trees all throughout the city. I don't know if you've seen, I've done a big push lately for if you want a tree. And as you look at tree canopy data, the Parks and Rec has decided to not study parts of this because it's so controversial. And they've pushed off for a couple of years their look at it, but other people are looking at it. So it doesn't necessarily have to just be a reliance on the person who or the department that should be collecting it. You can find it in other places. And I know that Dawn is working on a shade equity project as well. This one came up first. But one of the things I want to mention with Dr. Chatterjee's project on the garden on campus is that she came to us and was talking about the gardens, and because they're doing like common produce right now and food availability, we matched her with Dr. Sarah from anthropology, who was in the first year of the grant, who did work with Seeds of Hope, and his students' maps are now helping Choi Chatterjee on her project now, so that she doesn't have to do double time and double work on some of this. And so there's some of this that just already is floating around that will be helpful, but she can dig into it in a different way, because what they were looking at was food availability for, like, Seeds of Hope had asked us as a nonprofit to say, we match with these types of communities with these types of social parameters, and this is where we find our next location for a food bank, and this is where we find our next location for a community garden. What other locations would match similarly? And so the students went through and found 2 other communities that they could migrate into as recommendations. So there's lots of different ways to tackle this. Okay, Dawn, do you want to add some more stuff to this?
I just wanted to say I'm very excited for those that showed up today and some of the ideas that I'm already seeing in the chat. So I came on kind of late to the project. I'm a public historian by training, and my work with big data has facilitated some additional work with the re-entry population, formerly incarcerated students, and our community members. So I'm working with the Los Angeles Regional Reentry Partnership on some aspects, but also with Esri on writing a collaborative story about, shade equity and the issues of tree canopy, like the first project that Jessica was talking about. So my whole point with this is that, we are excited to collaborate with you, and there's no idea that we can't tackle and we can't address it and maybe find solutions for as well. To touch upon what my dean had said, yes, we do need historians and anthropologists, our social sciences now to come in and again, provide some sort of balance to the big data, those numbers, those abstract things that overwhelm a lot of our students. And, when you guys apply again, we're so student-centered though. We really want our students to gain these big data skills. Even if it's creating a survey, even if it's just going to the internet to find out information about their own communities, that also brings agency to our students. And a lot of our students, as we all know, are first generation, and this is so important for them to, again, be provided opportunities to break down a lot of these barriers that we see with first generation and just the educational disparities in our, higher education formats as well. So like Angela is going to use big data in her public history class next semester. So again, we know that exposing students very early on to big data, these research skills, these ideas, is all about inquiry, and that might be that one spark that enables a student to really, go with this in their career further, and further. So Jonathan, you have been a student here. You were a seed scholar for the program, and now you are our GIS tech. So share your little experience about as a student though, and then moving into these different landscapes that we have now with big data.
Really quickly, before
yeah.
John goes, I just want to make a point about,
Yeah.
you can have your students look at all the data that creates like a background for a problem you're tackling, or that creates data that you want to use to look at a problem. You can also collect data and then smash those all together, right? And see how the data that they're collecting in a field class or in data that you have collected in your own research, how that maps onto something.
Right.
So don't be afraid to create data, because we have a way to create and store data and then make these like multi-layered maps.
Right.
Right.
Well, Dr. Munoz, what is here in our conversation right now, and he was one that collected data on Black churches. Now he is going to collect, the data on churches that are in the Latino communities and everything as well. So, we can ask Dr. Munoz to share his experience as well. So yes, collecting data, interpreting, making story maps, making an exhibit, a small little project, everything is yes this year. And I'm excited that we can provide these opportunities for you guys. So Dr. Munoz, you can jump into Angela or Dr. Vergara. I think you had a question maybe for probably our GIS tech.
Oh yeah, I saw the chat.
Yeah.
Should I just
Yeah.
answer the chat or?
Sorry.
The chat's on fire. So yes, please.
So in regards to the toxic waste question, there are a lot of data sets on that, and I've actually gone out last semester and collected a few on cement production refiner or like locations and styrofoam production locations across Los Angeles. I made another one with we have basically a set of from Los Angeles, like an active business document, and I filter it by like what you would want to look at. So I've made like auto body shops and things like that, layers from those active businesses. So any businesses that you think you would want to see like a relationship in relationship to an area or to schools or anything like that, I think that we would be able to get that definitely. And I actually do have a story map that was made last semester where they actually looked into some of the facilities that were above PM 2.5. And they were looking at their location in relation to some schools in Wilmington. And also they're looking at some of the freeway locations in relation to those schools as well. So I think that's a great idea and a great question. I think we will be able to provide a lot of data.
One technical question before, and maybe you can answer this later, but okay, I'm very new to the ArcGIS program, and I took the class in geography like 2 years ago and had to use a program like that. And one thing, I guess it was because the class that was stopped as soon as the pandemic started, so we passed online. And one thing I noticed when we were taking the class is that when we work on the campus computer, we had access to the full program and it worked really well. And then we were moved to do with the ArcGIS online, but it doesn't seem to have all the features. To work with these data sets, do students need to work in the lab on campus? Is that better? Or can you download the program? I have a Mac too from campus, so I could never really download the program too. I guess I don't know.
So students primarily, or at least in the previous semesters, have been only using Arc Online. If they did want to do any additional processing steps or anything, we didn't require them to learn ArcGIS or ArcGIS Pro or Arc Desktop at all. We just if they wanted any additional processing of the data or anything like that, they would come into office hours and let us know about it, and we'd be able to get that data and do it ourselves. And we have Arc Online and ArcGIS Pro on our computer, so we can do that for them. Yeah, we're not requiring them to like learn the entire program. We just want to supplement their research with the GIS component.
And Angela, for your class, you can always request the dean's office to schedule you a day in a computer lab if you're an in-person class, and have the opportunity to try to get one of the GIS computer classrooms or just a regular computer lab that has GIS on it, and have access to a day where you are dedicated to say, we're going to do this. And then Jonathan and Cindy both, we have trainings, we've got online modules, we've got videos, there's plenty of technical support available to all the students, so that they shouldn't necessarily be bothering you to make it so that you feel like you have to be 1000% fluent in it. There's going to be lots of technical help available to you.
I wanted to add something that we created, actually a spring 2022 Canvas shell for faculty. So it's going to have all the resources. It's going to have step-by-steps on how students will navigate the GIS and read that data and stuff like that. I can pull it up just to give you an idea. The GIS techs right now are building this. And so the information that's going to be in this Canvas shell We've created it. Okay, we've, stuff to put into your syllabus. Eventually we'll have our office hours right here, how to use surveys, facts and questions. And then we offer our general help and support, how-to documents. And then since we're all soft science, social sciences, we've also included some articles on really how to engage, like with anthropology and big data right here, but also how to set up a project. So I've provided some, activities, but also some rubrics and templates and everything that you guys can use as you design a project, or you guys actually write out your syllabus. And so all these are live right here. And then, once you, apply for the big data grants and we get you into our system, you'll have access to everything. So we've given you guys examples, and Dr. Munoz actually helped us put this together too, with some of the stuff that he did with his freshmen. We're just basic stuff that we can kind of build upon as well. So we don't want this to be overwhelming for you, but we want you to be very inspired and know that we're here to support you. And we're not going to say no on things. We want our students really to see how well they can do. And then I've also included our projects from every one of our freshmen, NSS 1000 classes, all the way up to art and big data as well. So if you're interested and you do apply, I can grant you access to this Canvas. And then you guys can go ahead and utilize those resources as well. Would that help you out, Dr. Vergara, on this?
To answer the question about the special topics, I think that's probably fine. I mean, we've asked briefly that the courses be taught once before. That way, we have a syllabus that's already created to compare what's being redesigned. So it's not just like I created this entirely for it, but I don't know that that would be a problem. It sounds like you have two really good options of courses to run this in, and both would be fine.
Thank you, Jessica. Yeah, I was just curious about that because I've actually taught this course in different renditions, if you will, in the past. But this particular rendition will be the second time that I'm teaching it, and it's pretty popular. I usually have it filled like within the first couple of weeks even. So thank you for that. Thank you.
Yeah, I think that's great. And, also I think we've asked that your chair sign off on everything. And so that's another level just to make sure that we know that you guys know at all levels in your department that everything's fine, but it shouldn't ever be a problem.
Of course.
And then, Esther, that class sounds amazing. Rene, do we mind about new classes? We've previously made the requirement that it be taught once before for the redesign component.
No, we don't mind, especially if it opens up what we're doing and adds another layer. I want to make this more complex, right? Not more simplified. And Paul, if you have a problem with your chair, the dean. So it's like if we need to deal with it.
That's right. I even have some materials that I need to return to my dean. So
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. But no, in all seriousness, it's like I saw. Somebody said, I think you said, Paul, that the Natural History Museum they collect all kinds of urban biodiversity data. And if we could tap into that, their curators, they're curators, and maybe you have a good relationship with them. They need to be working with our Cal State LA students because all their patrons there are, people of color from our communities, and they go in buses because they're school children. But the curators themselves, they don't seem to reflect that, and they don't seem to care too much. So if we could change that, the representation of among curators in museums across the country or whatever it is,
Right. No, that's a valid thing, Dean. Absolutely.
Yeah, but no, I'm kidding about the chair thing. But yeah, if it's a course, and even if it hasn't been taught before, if it's a new course, I think we should be able to do this. Especially, is it your course, Paul? Is that what we're talking about?
It was Esther. Oh, I think it was Esther.
Yeah. Well, I can't say no to Esther. That's my. When I get fired from the dean, where do you think I'm going back? I'm going back to anthropology. So yes, Esther. Yes, Michelle. Because absolutely, that's what we want to do is try to say yes. And if it's a new course, I mean, what I saw somewhere along here that Esther put.
It was for Latinx health.
Oh, absolutely.
Cool. Yes.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And I know, so Jonathan's real talented. So you don't have to have expertise in GIS. Jonathan and Cindy Chen as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very talented folks. So we want your ideas, right? We want what you're doing, how you're already integrating, whether it's social justice or whether it's biodiversity. And we want you to focus on that aspect of it. And we'll provide the technical details and we'll help you to then transform this using ArcGIS, create story maps and things like that will then we could share with the community. We're sort of the bridge to the community in that sense. Now, if there's a nonprofit out there, and I think Jessica already talked about tree canopies and whatnot,
Right,
that is working on these projects, and if they're not, let us know. And we will, we'll help fund them as well. We'll help, bridge your relationship with them. And many nonprofits need help on mapping issues, need help on, many nonprofits already have a bunch of data and they don't necessarily know what to do with it or don't have the skill and expertise to do something with that. But with your specific questions, hopefully we can alleviate some of that and provide something for nonprofits, something for you and your courses and your students, but ultimately something that'll transform our communities. And it's incremental change, right? Things aren't going to change overnight, but incrementally each class, each student, each numbers of students in the future, maybe when I'm dead, right? Well, hopefully that's not soon, but maybe when we're all gone, it'll be a world that we dreamed of. And that's how it starts, is with the kind of work that we could do in these course redesigns. Yeah.
Esther, when you're looking at health data, there's tons of stuff that's going to be historical data. And then I think they discovered all the problems in data collection for COVID by race, ethnicity, and by geography, especially with how the city gets divided up. So one of the things you guys just need to know about in general is that there's cities that are their own city within our city, right? That don't report in their data or that have their own separate data collections. So like Santa Monica has their own data. Culver City will be like a blank spot in your map because it's its own spot. And you have to go back in. So I know with the head guy for the LA Times who was doing COVID data reporting for their data visualization. And he was like, it's such a pain because I have to call 17 offices to get all of their data just to show you the city of Los Angeles of like what people expect on their map, because all those entities don't talk to one another about their COVID deaths, cases, positives, all the reporting. And so people started to realize that everybody's got to dump it into one place. And so it's sometimes still piecemeal and you have to know where to look. And that's where Jonathan is helpful and Cindy is helpful. Sometimes other people have already started to kind of do this for you. It just may be in a weird place where you've got to find it. So we have connections to lots of different entities like that. If we need to go after it, we can.
And I think something that we could provide, is this correct, Dawn and Jessica? We could provide lists of nonprofits.
Yes.
and websites and whatnot, links, so you could begin to think about what you're interested in and whether or not there's a nonprofit out there that sort of is doing similar things. That's correct, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So and that's what we're here to do, is to help you do the things that you do, and especially related to using ArcGIS with big data to affect social change to some degree or another. Incrementally, of course.
I also want to mention that for the faculty that are here, this is the year that everybody gets logins. This is the year that everybody gets trained on how to use all this. So if you have a colleague that is working on a research project and they would benefit from having access to the international, national, or city data, and in some way that could be helpful to them, this is the time for them to get a login and to get trained on how to use the system and how to get whatever they need cleaned, because we have the funding this year. So whether or not they want to go through the whole process of a course redesign, whether or not they want to go through the whole process of doing this, if their research would benefit from this, this is the last year. This is the time we have this connection where this may still go on, maybe not in this way. We're, looking to how to extend this and expand maybe, but if you have a colleague that you need to sort of mention this to, please do so, because this is the time to do it. We have the resources to support colleagues who want to use this for their research or for other classes they might want to think about doing, if this just isn't the right time for them to do a course redesign. We don't want COVID and being at home and thinking about going in person and like all the things that are going on in our lives to stop anybody from just getting the access and the training, which you have to be kind of self-motivated to do that this fall. But if you are, this is the moment. I can't stress that enough.
No, thank you, Jessica. Do we have any other questions from, or just, comments or ideas that you want us to, think about right now that we have Jonathan with us, the dean's with us? Is there anything else that we need to discuss about this? We are so looking forward to your applications, really. So we're so grateful that you are interested in working with us this last 4th year. But I wanted to make sure that, we answered everybody's questions. The application is in chat for you. The due date is again on a Friday. So all the correct due dates are in this application for you. But we wanted to make sure that we shared space and answered everything about your concerns and questions. Oh, let me see what Michelle wrote. Okay.
Michelle, the answer to that is this is your own class and you can design it however you want. We don't control that. For redesign, the idea with us is that we are helpful to you as to how you want to redesign your class. We have suggestions of how other people have done in the past, and so that you don't create way more work for yourself than what you actually, it's worth your time to do. We don't want you to spin out and get buried, but you do you. That's pedagogical. We don't want to interfere with that at all. You can have 50 projects. I don't recommend it. Or you can have one giant project, but I also don't recommend, because one project everybody gets in the middle of and tries to work on at the same time. And the computer doesn't like that. But you get to sort of pick and choose how you want to set this up for yourself. We want to be helpful to you. And Angela, you do the old syllabus. And then in the application, you'll say kind of what you're thinking about for what this will look like. But no, you'll redesign your syllabus with us. Dawn and I, and then Jonathan and Cindy will help you do that over a couple of Fridays where you'll sit with us, become technologically savvy, learn how to use all these things, work on getting Jonathan and Cindy a heads up on what kinds of data you want to look at in case anything needs to be like drastically cleaned. Or we don't know where it is and we kind of have to go on a hunt, which sometimes is the case. And we will help you figure out how to create that project, that syllabus, how to time it out best over your course and kind of put it into your existing course so that it's the least amount of disruption for you in your world with the highest impact for them.
So I wanted to add to that, what Jessica said, the Canvas shell that we created, it has a section on project-based learning. And I've done that ever since I've started at Cal State LA. So I can help you with trying to organize projects and dividing that stuff up too. But like Jessica said, this is your class. We're here to support your vision and what you want to do with your students as well. So once you get access to that Canvas, there's documents and little activities to help you, think through this and not be so it's so much overwhelming. Michelle, yes, let me see.
It's not a problem, Michelle. That course is a brand new one that just got created. It's going to have the file that says like, what all should be in the course. So you're fine.
Right. Let's see what else.
But that's also a 1-unit class, right? So let's not spin out completely on making what would essentially be a 4-unit course also. Because these can get big, which is why we kind of do all the prep work ahead of time with faculty so that it doesn't become overwhelming for you guys.
Okay. Did anybody else have any questions? Jonathan, do you have any insight? Anything else that you'd like to add?
I think Paul had a question too, but
Yes.
but in regards to splitting up the classes, you can definitely do that. We had classes last semester where they're split up with even different community partners. So they can work on the projects how they want, or like kind of like an overall topic that you want them to look into, but then they can kind of like pick and choose their little niche within there.
Right.
And I think it's really good when they do that, because then they get a lot really involved when they're able to kind of control where the project goes and everything, especially if they don't have access to a certain data or something. It's easier to flip over to something to a different data set or something like that when it's more under their control, I guess.
Right. Angela had a question about technical workshops. This is the workshops that Jonathan and Cindy And of course, I'll be there with Jessica too, but this is going to be the workshops that they will start training and talking about, the GIS technical side. So I've given you guys the dates in chat. And again, if you need additional training, don't be shy, reach out. Yes, this is not our forte, obviously, at all. So please never feel like you can't reach out, Dr. Vergara, or anybody else on this call, to Jonathan or Cindy or even Jessica and myself. With
There's
these
also
questions.
there's a January workshop that is during
Yes.
the January term where you'll do the actual syllabus redesign. So basically
Yes.
what we want you to do is in the fall, feel technologically prepared, feel like you understand what data is actually going to be available. What does this realistically look like in terms of what you thought you wanted to do, and then what you know how to do, what you can get them to do, what data is available to do this, to like illustrate it. And then in January, you'll sit down with us and actually really sit down and go over the syllabus and redesign it so that you understand that the requirements and the timeline you're setting up makes sense for how to execute this, to try to use our past experience of having done this several times together collectively to make sure that you're set up for success.
And to add on to that, if you ever need like a refresher in the beginning of in January or anything, our office hour, we're still going to be holding office hours, and a lot of the students don't really attend the first office hours. So those first couple office hours are mainly for any faculty with additional questions or anything, and you're always welcome to join those anytime.
No, that's good insight, Jonathan. One of the things that we did last year was to hold Friday office hours sessions for faculty. And we would just literally sit around and talk about pedagogy and assignments and activities. Like Dr. Munoz was there with us. So, if that has to happen, then we're going to make that happen too. I'm not opposed to reserving an hour for you or 2 hours on a Friday afternoon. So, that we can come and talk about this as academics, as educators that we are and everything. So no problem, Melanie. Yeah, I had power outage too. That's why I'm on a video. So the winds right now, we're in fire season. So, these high winds are affecting. So, but I just wanted to add that, Paul, and onto what Jonathan was talking about too. Do we have any other questions? We saw two new people join us. So welcome to our Info Big Data session. I'll drop the application back into the chat, but this is your time right now to ask the College of NSS, if you have a great idea for us to really support with big data. So drop your questions in chat, ask Jonathan. Jessica's here too, as well, to assist us, okay? Let me go ahead and get our application back in there for the new people that came in. Mel, are you okay? I haven't heard from you. Do you have any questions? Esther, you're okay. Michelle, you're okay, right? Any other issues or concerns that we can help you with today? Let us know, please. Yeah, I've dropped the application in the chat, so you guys should be able to download that. The dates are there. I've dropped my email in the chat. Jonathan, if you would drop your email in, just so we can have a contact on that as well. For every course or for every faculty member that, applies, but, even if you can't and you would still like to have access, again, let Jessica and I know, maybe later on you'll use big data, so if we can support you now, that would be grateful for us as well. Oh, no problem, Paul. I know. I have a meeting at 2:32. It never stops for us and everything. But Paul, we look forward to your application. So I expect it soon. Okay, let me see what Esther is. Okay, but yes, Esther, I want you to apply too. Your work is so important to us and everything. So however we can support you, you just let us know. Okay, and Jonathan left his email in there for you as well. Anything else, Jonathan, that you want to talk about with them?
I can showcase some of
do
the
some.
previous,
Yes. Do a little showcasing. That's fine too.
Let me share my
And Dr. Munoz popped in. He dropped his link to his story map too.
Yes, yeah.
Which I thought is so fantastic anyway, his work that he's doing with the religion and big data. Did I share screen with you?
Okay, sorry, I get disconnected every like.
I know, I saw you
10
froze.
minutes.
I know, it's crazy.
I
did share
think,
screen.
okay.
Yeah, you
Okay,
got
yeah.
it. You can share it. Thank you, Jonathan.
So let me start off with, so this is actually Cindy Chen's storyboard here. And I'm just gonna showcase some of the things you can do with the GIS data through her storyboard. I have a few other ones that that other students have actually made. But I'll just go through them one at a time. So this is our first map here, and it's actually two maps, and they're combined into one by this swipe feature. On the left, she has existing tree canopy in Los Angeles. So if I click here, all right, if I we actually have the percentages here that go with each number for the council districts. And when you flip it over to the right, that's actually the potential tree canopy that can exist in Los Angeles. Sorry, I scrolled down. And then so they both have a separate legend here, and you can add a legend. You can actually make this static so people can't really zoom in or anything, but why would you want to do that? And there's also search features you can add in, like if they want to see a certain city or something, you can add a search bar here to do that. So then she goes into redlining, and this is a separate map where she's using a separate data set to showcase the redlining areas with ACS race and existing tree canopy layers as well. And then she has this really cool at the end. I hadn't seen it being done in ArcGIS Online yet. Okay, so this is tree inventory, and I think my internet might crash because of it. Oh no, there we go. So these are the inventories across tree inventory across Los Angeles. It's really dense, and I can hear my laptop the fan starting to go off. So I'm gonna keep scrolling, but to show, so this is all point data, and you can actually do analysis so you can use hotspot. You can make a hotspot analysis of this data. You can also show like tree density across Los Angeles, which I have another story map that shows that. And so in the story maps, you basically can tell your story on one side and have images or videos or anything you want on the other side. And you can actually have links as well. So here's a phase 1 and phase 2 report, which when I click on, it opens the actual PDF here. And yeah, okay. And so you can add your charts as well. This is just an image, but the next graph I'm going to show you actually uses, so you can actually implement charts that you basically define the chart through your data. So you can make a chart using like the data in your map, which is really, really interesting, without having to pull it into Excel or something like that to make those charts, or R or something. And this is a thing that I had to preload before the meeting, but this is a 3D canopy or 3D tree inventory map actually of Los Angeles with 3D buildings. But it's just a cool visualization, cool way of visualizing the data. I haven't seen it actually on a story map yet, so I thought that was really cool. And if I can, okay, yeah. And then she has her references here, and then let me go to the next one.
Jonathan, can you go to the map at the very top of that one for me, just to show everybody, because that one has a really good where you can see like Santa Monica's not in there, and like,
oh right, yeah,
it's not because there's no trees there, it's because Santa Monica's not reporting any data. And so some cities just aren't going to collect what you need, and it's just going to be a big black hole. So if you look, you can see Santa Monica, you can see Culver City, you can see Beverly Hills.
Yeah,
you're just not going to get data. Right.
And when we do get data from those cities, it's easy to just kind of join it to the existing data. So it'll eventually just fill on its own once you join those data sets.
Yeah, so you can add it if it exists, but sometimes it doesn't exist because not everybody has the same impetus to collect the same data, right? They weren't all given the same memo that everyone's going to start collecting that. So just because you can see it really clearly on this one.
Okay, and then let me see. Like the zoom controls are everywhere right now, all over the story map. So this is this was done last semester. It's actually this is looking into asthma or things that cause asthma in children, in Los Angeles. And this is what I was talking about earlier, where they looked into, so they have a picture here, and then they go in with their information, with their actual text information there. They add some more pictures here, and you can add links as well in your descriptions. They add a YouTube video, which I won't play because I'll probably lag out, but you can add videos, and if you have your own videos, you can also upload them yourself. You don't have to upload it to YouTube and then add it as an HTML link or anything. So what they did here is this is just industrial facilities in Los Angeles. They're only showing 94 of them. I'm not sure which ones they actually, so they picked hydrogen plants, oil and gas production, cogeneration, electricity generation, refineries, and other combustion sources. So these are all of those facilities around Los Angeles. And then when you scroll down, the map changes. Oh, okay, yeah, it did change. The map changes. And so this is a separate map, and these are I'm not sure where it went, but those were the facilities that exceed the PM 2.5 limit that they set. And when I keep going, so this is another part of their analysis. So they wanted to look into into the Wilmington area. So they made a 1 mile radial buffer around each of these facilities in Wilmington. And so once they made those buffers, they're able to do more analysis on it. So they actually colored the buffers here with the the PM values here. So the darker the color, the darker the PM, and the lighter the color, the lighter, or the lower the PM. And so the next step that they made was they're showing the actual preschool locations within these buffer zones. So if a preschool is within a mile of any of these refineries, it's going to be right on this map, included on this map. And then after this, these are actually the red preschool, or the red dots here, are preschools that are within a mile. I believe it's a mile of the, within 500 feet. Oh, no. No, it is a mile. Sorry. Yeah, within a mile of the freeways here. So we see there's two schools in Wilmington that are actually, or I guess there's two there. So 3 preschools in Wilmington that are actually outside of that mile of the freeway there. And so they added a poverty index to show where these schools are in relation to the ACS poverty index. And I do wish they would have kept the buffer zones, so we can see which of these areas are actually have more of those facilities in it. But so those are the preschools, and then so they go into each preschool here within the asthma alley that they're calling it, and then at the end they have policy recommendations. So and anything that they found in their research that would help the asthma valley. And then their references are all linked here, so you can actually click on these and go to their PDFs or however they did their research. Yeah. So and then the next one here I have, so this is actually a dashboard. So everything here is kind of like Dr. Munoz's dashboard. Is everything's kind of linked to the information on this map here. So so this number here is the sum of African American math enrollments, and what they do. I actually am in the edit mode. Let me show this then. So you can configure this, and if you see here, you can do your value type. So statistic is if you want to like add a sum or an average or anything, you can do that for the layer actually. So this is actually pulling in their base map layer, and then they're pulling out this their value for African Americans, or they also have one for Hispanics. And what it does is they chose to show the sum there, and you can basically make graphs. So on the right here, these are all linked to the data on the map as well, and you can make graphs and these kind of call out features all based on the data that's within the graph. So you don't have to pull anything out. You don't have to do anything in R or Python or anything to make these. You can do it all in Arc Online, which is really helpful. And I do have one more, which, oh, wait, what am I? Oh, okay. Oh, because I'm in the edit mode. Okay, let me just, I'll leave it. So I do have one more, which is my own, which is, it was just made to showcase some things. And so this is where I have here is the early education centers across Los Angeles, and then a heat map of community health. So if you look at the legend here, we have the early education centers with this symbol, which you can change. And you can also change the colors of the heat map if you want. I like to keep them the same so that people know it's not green and purple and they have to look at the legend or anything. And then down here, I also have a swipe map. This one, however, so this is on the right here, we have medical center density, and then on the left is homeless count by neighborhood. So the right, all this data was actually in points, like the tree inventory data that we saw in the beginning. But by running a density analysis, you're able to represent that in just more darker colors for more dense areas and lighter colors for less dense areas, rather than having very many points that kind of either bog down the computer or aren't really hard to tell where those areas are. And down here, I also have, this is for hotspots. This is a hotspot for pedestrian accidents. And and the blue here, which is underneath the hotspot analysis, but these are actually pedestrian safety corridors. And so you can kind of see where the pedestrian accidents are, pedestrian involved accidents are in relation to those safety corridors. And then I added like where I got the data. So if you click on that, it takes you to the actual data layer. And yeah. So that's all I wanted to showcase. And if you have any questions on any of that, I can answer them as well.
This is great, Jonathan. Thank you. I was just reading what Paul said too.
Oh.
Yeah, we can do refresher courses too, Angela. Absolutely. So yes, this is excellent. If you have any other questions, drop them in chat or just ask us. We're going to end shortly anyway, but we wanted to give enough space and time to make sure that we, covered everything that you guys need to know as you are preparing your application. I know, Dr. Vergara. So, but we're here to make it so it's not so intimidating. And again, we're going to, work with you guys on your syllabus to create and kind of plug in some stuff too as well. So we're here to support you, Dr. Vergara.
And I'll tell you, especially like I invented a term that when I was running the little pilot project that I said at this like big Esri meeting we had, and then Esri has started to using it now, called crap maps, where students will make a lot of crap maps. Like their first maps will be like, this thing is in dots and this thing is in like shaded and like these colors don't match and like, look how cool it is. And you're like, no one can read this. Like this map is terrible. You know what it means, but like no one else does. So like, let's figure out how to make this like look right. And that's where like, you're going to be helpful, but also like Jonathan and Cindy are going to be helpful, because there's like well-tested, tried and true strategies for how to visualize specific things together so that you get a shade and you get a dot and you get an icon of something, like there's ways to do it, but your students will make so many crap maps and it's fine. And it's part of the learning process. And so while it's intimidating for you guys to like think about having to teach this class and like deal with everybody, it's going to be nonsense in the beginning. Like it's a bit of chaos as they figure this out. And that's completely expected. Like you're going to have to just be like, this map is terrible. I love you, but like this map is terrible. You're lovely. You're smart. This is a terrible map. Please go make a new map. please figure out how these two things can go together, right? So it happens. Like the ones that Jonathan just showed you are beautiful. No one does that the first time, like ever.
Yeah,
I had a group who did a thing on like farmers markets, and they wanted to put in like transportation, like how close were these to public transit? And so they put in like all the bus lines, all the rail lines, all the subway, like all the metro lines. And then they put in just like a green dot for a farmer's market. And I was like, but where are they? Where are the green dots, ladies? Like there's too much information on these maps. Like if you really want to do this, you can't have, everywhere has a bus, right? Like that, throw that away. Like, you know, we had to like sort through the stuff. So it's not intimidating so much as like it's strategic, which is why we have the workshops, like why we sit down and talk with you guys so much in the lead up. And it feels like maybe it's like a lot of buy-in to have to like spend these Fridays with us, but I promise you, having done this now, this is the 4th year, like we have strategery to be helpful.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have a few. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, I have
Yeah,
a few
I was gonna.
slides too. Oh, sorry.
Angela, go.
Okay, I was going to say, so thank you. It makes so much more sense now because I'm teaching a class that is incorporating mapping, but I'm doing it by myself. And it's been a disaster because I understand maps. I can do a few ones, but I cannot teach the technical part. It's like I can do it, but I wasn't trained to do that. And then I don't know how to explain things. So I think I feel more safe in this way with this project because you're giving us you're doing the technical part and helping students to navigate. And I think that's key because that's what I'm really lacking, and so I'm looking forward to apply. So thank you. I'm intimidated still, but it looks great.
No, this is great, Angela. No, this is great. Does anybody, let me see what Michelle has. Let's see.
Michelle, it has to be a specific class. If you want to do the redesign, you don't necessarily have to have like a specific idea particularly. I think we'd like to hear it if you have like a guess as to where you want to go, just so that we can be helpful in trying to help you figure out how to narrow it down. I mean, your class is the project design class, so I don't know if because it's kind of set up to be like thesis preparation. So if students are just going to come in with their own projects and you're just going to kind of be helpful as to like how to help them gear towards it, that may be a bit more of a difficult way to run it. If you just have like maybe a sample project that you want everybody to kind of think through for like the first half of the class, and then they can kind of try it their own for the second half, that might be a better way to do it. So at least we can help you prep out something to really have that going and be curriculum in the beginning as a guess of a way of maybe to do it.
So let me jump in here. Sorry, I have a million things going on at once. It's sort of the nature of why I have gray hair. But what I would say, I mean, you know, again, yes, even I'm not opposed to something that's not even attached to a class. So I know we're speaking specifically about a spring redesign. However, if you have a particular research project, you're working with some graduate students or undergraduate students, and you see that you could tap into some of the data sets that we have, and this data set or part of it ends up into a master's thesis, I would be totally supportive of this. And so, yes, this talk is about the spring redesign, but I mean, I'm okay with you know, going beyond the spring redesign or doing both. You know, if yes, the spring, the course could then, you know, help with a graduate student who's working on a particular project who will turn this into a thesis and take it even further. Yeah, I mean, let's find a way to do that. And I know I'm probably speaking out of turn, but I just want to throw that sort of positive vibe and to make sure everybody is, make sure we don't put roadblocks in front of ourselves when we're here to just bash those roadblocks out of the way and figure out how we can do it. And maybe we can't, but let's see and think about ideas and ways that, you know, we can integrate some of our goals and your needs. And I don't know what Mel said. You know, as an archaeologist, I'm real excited. You know, I'm real biased, obviously, but I'm excited. And hopefully we can find a deal for Mel as well. You know, and not to mention, we've already mentioned Paul in biology and the other folks. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Dean, for that. Any other questions, you guys? Anything that we can help you with, talk through with you? Let us know. Okay, we have a couple more minutes before we end at around 2:30, but we are here to talk to you right now. So let us know.
You know, there was something, I'm involved in this project in Ireland and County Donegal at a site called Dishart. And the site is a place that community people use. And one of the things that we installed one of these electronic trackers that every time you go through, it clicks. And so we can count how many people, we don't know who they are. I mean, minus putting the camera there and spying on them. But, you know, we're using this information to talk about, you know, not only site visits, but then what is the potential impact to archaeological sites when we increase tourism, which is an important thing. And I'm thinking, I've had a project in the Santa Monica Mountains, the same thing. We haven't had a clicker, so to speak, that's counted the number of people have come, but it's right next to an urban wildlands interface, and all the local people think it's their park, and it is, where they go horseback riding and dirt riding and jogging and all that. And sometimes they illegally cut through archaeological sites because they want to make a different type of trail. But this is another way where we can use sort of, you know, historic preservation as a basis for change, right? For doing something that's good in terms of archaeological sites. And these counters become essential, or even interviews. We've interviewed various people about how often they use it. And some of these folks use these archaeological sites, not because they're sites, but because they're parklands on a daily basis. And there is an impact when you use it. You can love things to death. You can imagine the pyramids in Egypt, or, you know, state-wide archaeological sites in state-sponsored archaeological sites in Mexico, or in the American Southwest, where they no longer allow people to climb up and down ruins, and sometimes they still do. So all those types of things, I think it'd be great to have research programs that did that, not necessarily for big data, but that's the type of information we could begin to look at on a broad scale to understand how, you know, humans are impacting cultural heritage sites.
Okay, so everybody has the application. We've put our email into chat for you guys to contact. If there's anything else that we need to talk about, let us know. Okay, and if not, I can close out this session and we'll see each other again. But again, I just want to spend the last couple of minutes making sure that we've answered everything that you need to ask us.
If you have any other questions, feel free to email myself or Dawn, and we will try to get you answers for anything. The application is due when, Dawn? Is it November 1st?
No,
No.
it's October 22nd.
22nd, sorry.
Right. Yes, fine. And it's up, you know, it's been updated and everything, and that's why I put the one in chat for everybody to use too. So, but if you have any questions about whether or not this is a good fit, again, email us. Okay. If you have tech questions about data, if it exists, email Jonathan. Okay.
Oh, and Angela, I know that Jonathan had been looking into some Chile data for you just to see like what all existed in the larger hub. And so there is stuff that's there just for your other project.
Only if you take us on a guided tour of Chile.
Yes.
Angela, we don't have times for them yet because we're waiting to see who all is accepted into it and when everybody can meet. But it will either be probably in the 9 to 11 or 1 to 3, but probably most likely 1 to 3 because it tends to be the time most people can meet, but it hasn't been decided.
Okay.
Okay, folks.
Dean, did you want to close out with any comments before we end this info session?
Apply, let's give you support,
Yes.
and yeah, let's transform our communities.
Absolutely. Okay.
Thanks for joining us on a Friday, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Friday, and I gotta go back to work, but it's fun. I love being the dean. Everybody, it's good seeing folks. One of these
Thank you,
days, I hope to see
everybody.
everybody in person again.
Go
Bye-bye.
Dodgers.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Again, email us. We look forward to reviewing your applications. So have a great weekend, everybody. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.